The silence that followed was deafening, but it wasn't just about the magazine. My secretary Emma wasn't alone. She was followed by 2 photographers from Forbes and a small camera crew. This was, after all, part of their coverage. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Walker," Emma said smoothly, playing her role perfectly. "But Ms. Walker needs to approve these final shots for tomorrow's press conference. You know, for the NYSE opening bell ceremony." Mom's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, and then something that looked almost like fear. She had spent years crafting her image as the perfect society mother, and now her unemployed daughter was about to shake her carefully constructed world. "Sarah," Dad finally managed, his voice hoarse. "What is this?" I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress. "This, Dad, is what success looks like to me. Walker Technologies, my company. We're going public tomorrow with an estimated market value of $4.2 billion. Madison dropped her engagement ring into her soup as she grabbed for the magazine. Her fiancé, Dr. Perfect as I called him in my head, was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. But you've been living in that tiny apartment," Mom stuttered. "You drive a used car." I smiled. "That tiny apartment is actually the entire top floor. I own the building, Mom. And that used car is a custom-made Tesla. I just never felt the need to show off." The other dinner guests were whispering now, phones coming out, no doubt Googling my name. The Forbes article had gone live online an hour ago, and social media was already buzzing. "Impossible," Dad declared, but his voice shook slightly. "You couldn't have, not without your help?" I finished for him. "That's exactly the point, Dad. Remember 2 years ago when you said I'd never make it on my own? That I needed your connections, your guidance, your money?" I walked over to Emma, who handed me the magazine. My cover photo was simple: me in a black blazer against a white background, looking directly at the camera. No pretense, no family fortune backing me up. Just pure merit. "I took that rejection and turned it into motivation," I continued. "Every time you told me I was throwing my life away, I worked harder. Every time Mom told her friends I was finding myself, I was actually building something revolutionary." The photographers were quietly capturing everything: Mom's shocked face, Dad's crumbling composure, Madison's obvious discomfort. Tomorrow these would accompany the article about the tech industry's newest billionaire. "Mrs. Walker," one of the photographers stepped forward. "Would you like to comment on your daughter's success? The article mentions how you and your husband inspired her to be independent." Mom's wine glass trembled in her hand. "Oh, we always knew Sarah had potential." "Really?" I couldn't help myself. "Is that why you told Mrs. Henderson just 10 minutes ago that I was between jobs and struggling to find direction?" The Hendersons, still sitting at the table, shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Henderson, who had rejected my job application 3 years ago, was now furiously typing on his phone, probably checking if his company's acquisition by Walker Technologies was public knowledge yet. Emma cleared her throat. "Ms. Walker, the press conference schedule needs your approval." And Mr. Gates called again about the partnership deal. "Bill Gates?" Madison squeaked. "No, dear," I smiled. "Melinda Gates. She's been a wonderful mentor." The room erupted in chaos. Society ladies who had been politely ignoring me all evening suddenly wanted to know all about my fascinating work. Men who had been patronizing me about finding a real job were now trying to slip me their business cards. Through it all, my parents sat frozen, their perfect dinner party transforming into my coming-out celebration. The charity event they'd planned to showcase Madison's engagement and Dad's business success had become something entirely different. "Oh, and Mom," I added, watching her jump slightly at being addressed. "About the charity? Walker Technologies just matched all of tonight's donations. Times 10. That was when Mom's carefully applied mascara finally started to run. Not from joy or pride, but from the realization that her failure daughter had just outshone her entire family in one fell swoop. Emma approached again, this time with a tablet. "Your father's company stock is dropping, ma'am. Would you like me to proceed with the buyout offer?" Dad's head snapped up. "Buyout?" I smiled, taking the tablet. "We can discuss that after dinner, Dad. We wouldn't want to ruin Mom's party, would we?" The irony of using their own passive-aggressive tactics against them wasn't lost on anyone. Years of subtle digs, backhanded compliments, and outright dismissal had prepared me well for this moment. The photographers caught Dad's pallor, Mom's trembling hands, and Madison's obvious distress. Tomorrow millions would see the moment the Walkers realized they had grossly underestimated their oldest daughter. Emma began distributing copies of the magazine to the dinner guests. The cover story title glinted under the crystal chandelier. The Silent Revolution: How Sarah Walker Built a Tech Empire While Her Family Thought She Was Failing. I took my seat again, calmly picking up my fork. Shall we continue with dinner? I believe we were discussing what success looks like. The rest of dinner was a masterclass in uncomfortable silence punctuated by desperate attempts at small talk. The magazine had become the centerpiece of every conversation, passed around the table like a hot potato. Each guest took turns scanning the article, their eyes widening at the details of my company's meteoric rise. Walker Technologies specializes in revolutionary AI-driven medical diagnostics. One guest read aloud, his voice carrying across the table. Their latest innovation has already been adopted by 17 major hospitals worldwide. Mom's hand shook as she refilled her wine glass for the third time. Hospitals? But you never mentioned. You never asked, I replied simply. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject to Madison's accomplishments. Madison, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly burst out. But you said you were working on some computer thing. You made it sound so small. That small computer thing just secured a $500 million contract with the Department of Defense, Emma interjected, still standing professionally by the wall. She had perfect timing, I had to give her that. Dad, who had been studying the magazine intently, finally looked up. These numbers, they can't be right. You're claiming quarterly revenues of $897 million, yes, I finished for him. Would you like to see the audited financials, Dad? I'm sure you'll find them fascinating, especially considering you told me 2 years ago that my business plan was amateur at best. The memory of that day was still crystal clear. I had gone to him with my initial proposal, hoping that for once he'd see my potential. Instead he'd laughed, called it a pipe dream, and suggested I grow up and get a real job. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Sarah, about that acquisition. Oh yes, I smiled, turning to face him. Your board has already approved the sale. We'll be announcing it next week. I hope you don't mind reporting to that young girl who needs more experience. Your words from my job interview, I believe. The color drained from his face as other guests turned to stare. The mighty James Henderson, who had built his company from the ground up, was now being bought out by the woman he had once rejected for an entry-level position. Speaking of announcements, Emma stepped forward again, tablet in hand. Ms. Walker, the Wall Street Journal is requesting an exclusive about the Goldman Sachs partnership. Dad choked on his water. Goldman Sachs had been his white whale for 20 years, repeatedly rejecting his firm's partnership proposals. Tell them we'll discuss it next week, I said, watching Dad's face. After we finish acquiring Anderson and Walker Investment Group. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the servers stopped moving. You're buying my company? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Technically I already have, I corrected him. The paperwork was finalized this morning. I just thought it would be polite to tell you in person. Mom's carefully manicured nails dug into the tablecloth. But that's your father's life work. Yes, and now it's part of Walker Technologies' portfolio. Don't worry, Dad. Unlike you, I don't believe in firing family members. You can keep your position. Under new management, of course. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The daughter they dismissed as a failure was now their boss. Is that what this is about? Dad's voice rose slightly. Revenge. I met his gaze steadily. No, Dad. It's about business. Your company's market value has dropped 40% in the past year. Your technological infrastructure is outdated, your client base is shrinking, and your approach to AI integration is practically prehistoric. I'm not buying you out for revenge. I'm doing it because it's a sound business decision. Using his own cutthroat business logic against him was satisfying, I had to admit. The photographers who had been quietly documenting everything suddenly became very interested in capturing Dad's expression. Tomorrow's papers would show the exact moment William Walker realized he had become an employee in his daughter's empire. Madison, trying to salvage something from the evening, piped up, Well, at least now we can have the wedding at that exclusive resort in the Maldives. They've been booked solid for years, but surely with your connections. Oh, you mean the Azure Paradise Resort? I asked innocently. I bought it last month. Consider it my wedding gift to you. Her fiancé dropped his fork. The resort was famous for hosting celebrity weddings and had a 5-year waiting list. Emma stepped forward again. Ms. Walker, your helicopter is ready on the rooftop. The board members are waiting in Singapore for the pre-IPO meeting. Helicopter. Mom whispered, her perfect makeup now slightly smeared. Yes, the one Dad said was wasteful and impractical when I mentioned wanting to get a pilot's license. Turns out it's quite practical when you're running a global company. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Thank you for dinner, Mom. Was illuminating. Emma, please make sure everyone gets a copy of the magazine. Oh, and Dad. I paused at his chair. Don't worry about coming to the office tomorrow. Take some time to process things. Your new contract will be delivered in the morning. The sound of helicopter blades could be heard from above, and through the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, guests could see the sleek black aircraft landing on the rooftop helipad. Its side bore the Walker Technologies logo, my company's emblem, not my father's. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard Madison ask in a small voice, "Did anyone else know my sister was a billionaire?" The photographers followed, capturing what would become iconic images. Me walking away from my stunned family, the magazine cover gleaming under the chandelier lights, and my parents' expressions as they watched their failure daughter step into her waiting helicopter. The night wasn't over yet. Singapore awaited, and with it the next phase of my plan. Because what my family didn't know was that this dinner party revelation was just the beginning. The Singapore meeting was a success, but my mind kept drifting back to the chaos I'd left behind in New York. My phone had been buzzing non-stop, 47 missed calls from Mom, 23 from Dad, and countless messages from Madison. I let them stew. 15 years of their dismissal deserved at least a few days of silence in return. The real storm hit 3 days later when I returned to New York. Walker Technologies' IPO had broken records, making headlines worldwide. Tech's new queen, they called me. My face was plastered across Times Square, and the stock had soared 250% on opening day. I walked into my office on the 85th floor of the Walker Tower. Yes, I'd renamed the building after acquiring it, to find my father waiting. Emma had obviously let him in. "You've made your point, Sarah," he said, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. "Now let's discuss a reasonable arrangement." I settled behind my desk, a sleek, modern piece that cost more than his first car. "There's nothing to discuss, Dad. The acquisition is final." "Damn it, Sarah." His composure cracked. "That company was meant for your sister. We had a plan." "Yes, your plan. Never mine." I pulled up a holographic display showing his company's performance charts. "Look at these numbers, Dad. Be honest, when was the last time you actually innovated? While you were grooming Madison to take over a dying company, I was building the future." He stared at the hovering charts, his expression a mix of awe and frustration. The technology alone proved my point. Walker Technologies was light years ahead of his traditional investment firm. "Your mother hasn't slept in days." He tried a different approach. "Is this what you wanted? To hurt us?" "No," I replied calmly. "I wanted you to see me. Really see me. Not as your failure, but as who I actually am." I gestured to my office, my empire. "All those years I was invisible unless you were criticizing me. Every family photo, every dinner, every holiday, I was the disappointment you couldn't wait to dismiss." A notification popped up on my screen. Our AI diagnostic system had just saved another life at Mayo Clinic. These notifications came in regularly now, each one representing a person who might have died without our technology. "We're saving lives, Dad. While you and Mom were obsessing over Madison's society wedding, my company developed an AI that can detect cancer 3 months earlier than any existing method. That's what I was doing while you thought I was finding myself." He sank into a chair, suddenly looking older. "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened?" I pressed a button, and the windows transformed into screens showing clips from past family gatherings. Mom mocking my little computer project. Dad laughing at my business proposals. Madison being praised for her minor accomplishments while my major ones were ignored. "I tried telling you. Many times. But you were too busy planning Madison's future to notice I was building my own. Emma's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Walker, the White House is on line 1. The president would like to discuss the healthcare initiative. Dad's eyes widened. I picked up the phone. Good morning, Madam President. Yes, the AI implementation is ahead of schedule. As I discussed national healthcare policy with the president, Dad watched in stunned silence. His daughter, the one he'd written off as a disappointment, was casually chatting with the most powerful person in the world. After the call, I turned back to him. The company isn't for sale, Dad. Not back to you, not to anyone. But your job is secure, if you can accept that things have changed. And if I can't? Then you can retire. Your choice. But Madison won't be taking over anything, she hasn't earned it. In fact, I pulled up another holographic display. Her performance reviews have been abysmal. The only reason she made it to junior partner was nepotism. The truth hurt, but it needed to be said. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. Mom walked in looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Sarah, please. We need to talk. Now you want to talk? I stood up, walking to my private bar. Funny how that works. Would you like to know what I really did these past 2 years, Mom? While you were telling your friends I was a disappointment. I pressed another button and the office walls lit up with images. Me speaking at tech conferences, meeting world leaders, opening research centers. I was revolutionizing healthcare. I was creating jobs. I was building something that matters. But we're your family, she whispered. Yes, you are. And you'll always be family. But this, I gestured to my empire, this is my legacy. Not the one you planned for me, but the one I built despite you. Emma entered with a tablet. Ms. Walker, the NASA contract is ready for your signature. And the Nobel Committee sent their preliminary notification. Mom's knees buckled. Dad caught her before she fell. The Nobel Prize? He croaked.